What happens when one of country music's most beloved stars sits down with television's most outspoken talk show hosts, and everything goes off the rails? You won't believe what unfolded when writer Blake Shelton joined at The View for what was supposed to be a simple interview, but turned into one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime TV history. This wasn't just another celebrity appearance gone wrong. It was a masterclass in how quickly a friendly chat can spiral completely out of control when egos clash and tempers flare. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that unsubscriber button and drop a comment below, because you're not going to believe how this morning at The View unraveled. The day began like any other at The View. Studios in New York City, Blake Shelton, fresh off his latest album release and basking in the success of his recent tour, was set to appear on the show to talk about his music and life after leaving The Voice. What should have been a light-hearted, promotional appearance quickly turned into something far more volatile. The hosts, it seemed, had other plans. From the moment Shelton walked onto the set, the tension was unmistakable. Joy Behar, known for her sharp wit and political edge, eyed him with a look that could only be described as predatory. Whoopi Goldberg sat silently, her usual stern expression giving nothing away, while the rest of the panel exchanged uneasy glances, as if they sensed what was about to happen. The show began with polite small talk and forced smiles. Shelton, dressed casually in jeans and a button-down, appeared relaxed and ready to chat about his music. He shared a few funny stories from the road, earning laughs and applause from the audience, but beneath the surface, something was brewing. Then Joy Behar leaned forward. "So, Blake," she began, her voice carrying a razor-sharp edge, "you've been pretty vocal about your political views in the past. Given everything happening in this country right now, I'm curious, where do you stand on some of the more controversial issues?" The question hit like a curveball. Shelton's expression shifted. This wasn't going to be the casual morning chat he expected. He took a breath, his media training kicking in. "Well, Joy, I've always believed music should bring people together, not drive them apart. I just try to focus on entertaining folks and giving them something positive to connect with." It was a careful, diplomatic answer, but Behar wasn't letting go. "That's nice," she shot back. "But don't you think celebrities have a responsibility to speak up about injustice? You've got millions of fans. Shouldn't you use your platform for something more than just entertainment?" The room fell silent. Cameras rolled. Shelton's jaw tightened slightly. "I think everyone has a right to their own opinion," he replied evenly. "I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on politics just because I sing for a living. I respect my fans enough to let them think for themselves." That's when a Whoopi Goldberg entered the fray. "But Blake," she said firmly, "that's the problem. Staying neutral when people are suffering isn't neutral. Your silence says a lot about where you really stand." The accusation landed hard. Shelton's easygoing demeanor cracked. He straightened in his seat, his voice steady but edged with frustration. "I think you're making a lot of assumptions about me based on what I haven't said, and that doesn't seem fair." The energy shifted. The panel sensed blood in the water. One host brought up old social media posts. Another mentioned comments he'd supposedly made years earlier, long since twisted out of context. It was no longer an interview. It was an ambush, precise, coordinated, and ruthless. Offstage, Shelton's publicist shifted uncomfortably, realizing her client was being cornered on live television. What started as a routine appearance had become a PR nightmare in real time. The audience, who moments earlier had been thrilled to see their favorite country star, began to murmur uneasily as the tone in the studio shifted. What had started as a cheerful morning show appearance was quickly spiraling into something far more uncomfortable. "Look," Shelton said, his voice taking on that unmistakable Oklahoma edge, the kind of tone that carried both warning and resolve. "I came here to talk about music and maybe share a laugh or two with your viewers. I didn't sign up to be lectured about my personal beliefs or have my character questioned based on your assumptions about who you think I am." Joy Behar didn't flinch. Her voice grew sharper, more forceful with every word. "Character, Blake. Your character is exactly what we're talking about. When you stay silent while marginalized communities are under attack, when you refuse to use your platform to speak out against injustice, that tells us everything we need to know about your character." The studio fell silent. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Shelton's face flushed red. His hands gripped the arms of his chair until his knuckles went white. This was no longer a political debate. It was a personal assault. He had come to promote his music, not to be painted as a villain. And then he snapped. "Now hold on just a damn minute," he said, his voice slicing through the air like a blade. "You don't know the first thing about me, lady. You sit here in your little bubble, judging people you've never met and acting like you're some kind of moral authority. That's rich, coming from someone who makes a living tearing people down on national television." Behar's face turned crimson. Her composure cracked, but she fired back immediately. "Excuse me. I'm holding you accountable, Blake. That's what journalists do. We ask the hard questions your fans won't." Her tone dripped with condescension as she leaned back, a smug smile creeping across her face, convinced she had the moral high ground. But Shelton wasn't backing down. The polished, media-trained persona had vanished, replaced by the raw, unfiltered man beneath. "Journalist?" He shot back. "Is that what you call this? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks a lot more like a setup. You invited me here under false pretenses, and now you're trying to twist my words just so you can go viral on social media." The accusation hit hard. The panelists shifted uncomfortably, sensing he had struck a nerve. Whoopi Goldberg quickly stepped in, her voice calm but firm. "Nobody's trying to bully you, Blake. We're just having a conversation about responsibility, about using your platform for good. If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should ask yourself why." Shelton let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Responsibility? You want to talk about responsibility? How about treating your guests with basic respect? How about having an honest conversation instead of setting up a political ambush? You lecture me about using my platform, while you use yours to attack anyone who doesn't share your worldview." The tension in the studio reached a boiling point. The audience sat frozen, some exchanging uneasy glances, others looking down at their phones, unsure of what they were witnessing. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every raw second of what was quickly becoming a live television meltdown. Then another panelist, sensing an opportunity to pile on, leaned forward. "Blake, what we're trying to understand," she said carefully, "is how someone with your level of influence can claim to care about people, yet stay silent on issues that affect their lives. Don't you see how that comes across as hypocritical?" Shelton's eyes flashed, his patience finally gone. "Hypocritical?" he repeated, his voice low but fierce. "You want to talk about hypocrisy? Try sitting there pretending to care about people, while you systematically tear down anyone who doesn't toe your political line. You talk about compassion, but all I see is judgment." The air in the studio was electric. The exchange had gone beyond politics. It had become a clash of values, pride, and personality. And it wasn't over yet. "But what about the millions of Americans in small towns and rural communities?" Shelton countered, his voice steady but firm. "The people whose voices you ignore, whose struggles you dismiss because they don't fit into your narrative? What about their perspective?" The question landed hard. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence that followed said more than words ever could. A silence thick with discomfort and quiet acknowledgement that the panel had no real answer. Joy Behar was the first to recover, and when she did, her tone was pure venom. "Oh, so now we're playing the victim card? Poor Blake Shelton, the multi-millionaire country star oppressed by a few mean liberal women asking tough questions." The mockery in her voice was unmistakable, and it was exactly the wrong move. Shelton's expression hardened, his eyes cold and unflinching. When he spoke again, his voice dropped to a low, dangerous calm that carried more force than any shout. "You know what, Joy? You just showed everyone exactly who you really are," he said quietly. "This isn't about politics or social justice or whatever principles you claim to stand for. This is about you feeling superior to the people you look down on, the ones you think are beneath you." Whoopi Goldberg tried to intervene, raising her hand slightly. "Blake, I think you're being unfair. We're not attacking you personally. We're questioning your positions on important issues." But her defense rang hollow. After everything that had been said, there was no mistaking the hostility behind their words. Shelton shook his head slowly. "Unfair? Lady, you've been attacking me personally since the second I sat down. You've questioned my character, my integrity, and my values, all based on your own prejudices and assumptions. And now you want to pretend this is journalism?" The situation was unraveling fast. In the control room, producers were no doubt panicking as their segment descended into chaos. But the cameras kept rolling, capturing every raw second. Then another host, perhaps sensing an opening, made the mistake of jumping in. "Blake, no one's attacking you. We're just asking you to recognize your privilege and to use your platform to be an ally." That was the spark that ignited the explosion. Shelton leaned forward, his patience gone. "Don't you dare lecture me about privilege while you sit in your Manhattan studio completely detached from the real world. You want to talk about responsibility? How about taking responsibility for the divisive rhetoric you push every single day? How about owning up to the fact that you're part of the polarization you claim to hate?" The words hit like a hammer. Even the co-host shifted uncomfortably. For a split second, Behar's composure faltered, but she quickly snapped back, eyes blazing. "You know what your problem is, Blake?" she snapped. "You can't handle being challenged. You're so used to your fans worshiping you that the minute someone questions your precious little worldview, you fall apart." It was a brutal, personal shot, designed to wound. But Shelton didn't flinch. He leaned in closer, his eyes locked on hers with unshakable focus. "My problem?" he said, voice like steel. "My problem is that I trusted you to have an honest conversation. I gave you the benefit of the doubt, and instead I walked straight into an ambush. My problem is thinking this was about discussion when all you wanted was a headline." At that moment, any pretense of civility vanished. Both sides were fully dug in, their hostility no longer masked by politeness. The audience sat frozen, wide-eyed as the confrontation reached its breaking point. And then Joy Behar went for what she clearly believed was the knockout blow. "You know what, Blake?" she said, her voice dripping with smug certainty. "Maybe the problem isn't the questions. Maybe the problem is that your time is up. Country music is changing. America is changing. And maybe there just isn't room anymore for people with your outdated views." The words hit the studio like a physical blow. Gasps echoed through the audience. Even some of Behar's co-hosts looked uneasy, realizing she had gone too far. But she wasn't finished. "Maybe it's time you step aside," she continued, "and let artists with more progressive values take center stage. Maybe your fans deserve better than someone stuck in the past." For a long, heavy moment, the studio was silent. Shelton sat perfectly still, his face calm but his eyes burning with fury. The insult had been so sharp, so personal, that even the production crew hesitated to breathe. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, measured, and absolutely lethal. "Are you finished?" he said quietly. "You know what, Joy?" Shelton said, his voice low and steady. "You just proved everything I suspected about you and about this entire show." He looked around the table, meeting each host's eyes one by one. "You don't care about having real conversations. You don't care about understanding different perspectives. All you care about is tearing down anyone who doesn't fit your narrow little worldview." He paused, the tension thick in the air. "You talk about progress and change, but what you're really talking about is silencing anyone who dares to think differently. You've turned what should be a platform for open dialogue into a weapon, one used to shame and humiliate people whose only crime is disagreeing with you." Sensing things had gone too far, Whoopi Goldberg stepped in, her tone cautious. "Blake, I think emotions are running high here. Maybe we can just take a step back." Shelton cut her off with a sharp gesture. "No, Whoopi. We're way past that point. Your colleague here just told me, on national television, that there's no place for people like me in America anymore. She told millions of viewers that my fans deserve better than me. So no, let's not pretend this is about emotions. This is about showing your true colors." The air in the studio grew suffocatingly tense. The audience sat frozen, silent, uneasy, unsure of what they were witnessing. This wasn't an interview anymore. It was a live public confrontation. Joy Behar leaned forward, doubling down instead of backing off. "Well, maybe if the shoe fits, Blake. Maybe if you're feeling attacked, it's because you know deep down that there's some truth in what I'm saying. Maybe it's time you ask yourself why you're so defensive." That was it. The final straw. Shelton's chair scraped violently against the studio floor as he stood. The sound echoed like a gunshot through the dead silence. "That's it," he said, his voice rising with restrained fury. "I'm done with this circus. I came here in good faith and to talk about my music and connect with fans. And instead, I walked into an ambush by a group of bullies who think they're morally superior to everyone else." He began unfastening his microphone, his movements deliberate, each one radiating quiet defiance. "You want to know what's really outdated?" he said, his voice calm but cutting. "It's this idea that you can treat people like garbage, then hide behind some noble cause to justify it. That disagreeing with you makes someone a bad person, someone who deserves to be humiliated on live TV." The hosts sat in stunned silence as Shelton continued, every word landing like a hammer blow. "You talk about values and responsibility, but where are your values when it comes to basic human decency? Where's your responsibility to have honest, respectful conversations instead of staging hit jobs?" He tossed his microphone onto the table. The sound reverberated through the studio like a declaration of war. "You know what the real tragedy is?" he said, his voice softening with disappointment. "You had a chance to bridge divides, to bring people together through genuine dialogue. But instead you chose to use your platform to bully and attack someone who came here with an open heart." Behar, her voice suddenly uncertain, tried to respond. "Blake, if you can't handle—" "No," he cut in, his tone razor-sharp. "You don't get to spin this. You don't get to pretend this is about me not handling criticism. This is about you showing the entire country exactly who you really are behind all the righteous talk." Then Shelton turned, not to the hosts, but to the camera. "Folks, what you just saw here," he said, "is everything that's wrong with our national conversation. These people didn't invite me here to talk. They invited me here to destroy me, all because I think differently than they do." The moment was electric. The studio, the crew, even the audience, were all frozen in stunned silence as Shelton's words hung heavy in the air. "The sad thing," he continued, "is that there are real problems in this country that deserve serious discussion. But instead of having those talks, they'd rather score cheap political points by tearing people down." He turned to leave, then paused for one final thought. "You know what's not outdated?" he said, looking straight into the lens. "Treating people with respect. Having honest conversations, building bridges instead of burning them. Those values will never go out of style, no matter how hard some folks try to shame people for holding them." With that, Blake Shelton walked off the set of The View, leaving behind a panel of stunned hosts, a silent audience, and a moment of live television that would be replayed and debated for years to come. The man who had entered the studio as a guest left as something more, a symbol of pushback against a culture of manufactured outrage and performative moralizing. And as the cameras cut to commercial, the silence he left behind said more than any word ever could.